Hey everyone, I am excited for this video today because I'm going to be showing you my top 5 favorite plants of all time. And if you don't already know, my name is Sam and I am the creator over at HOUSEPLANT on Instagram, here on YouTube, on TikTok, so go give all those places a follow. Subscribe to my channel here if you haven't yet, and I'm just going to get into this because I'm excited to show you all of my favorites. When I started to think about making this video, I really had to sit down and think through my favorites because I have a lot of plants and I feel like in general my favorites kind of rotate throughout the seasons or by the minute. So I had to really sit down and think of ones that are always in my top 5, top 10, and why. Like I really wanted to sit and think about why they're my favorites. Either they are special to me for some reason, or they have just been really easy for me, or they've been difficult and I've like mastered them and they've made it my favorite. So I will show you those 5, and hopefully if you guys don't have them, you can add them to your list because I think that they'll all be plants that everyone would enjoy. I'm making myself some coffee really quick before I dive into this, but I also wanted to mention that these are not really in any order as far as like my number 1 favorite to my number 5. I really love all of these pretty much equally, and so it was hard enough to choose a top 5. I don't think that I could ever choose a number 1 favorite, so keep that in mind. We're ready. I'm gonna head into the office to show you one of my favorites, and this one I have had for about 4 years, I think, and it is definitely a favorite. It is my Monstera deliciosa. Okay, the lighting in here is gonna make it pretty hard to show this guy, but this is absolutely one of my favorites. It is my Monstera deliciosa. I've had this one for at least 4 years now, and I got it as just a 10-inch pot with like a few leaves. I think the most fenestrated leaf was one that looked like this, and now it has just grown into this beast. I actually did cut it off as well and propagated it, so right back in here I took a cutting and it has grown this leaf, kind of a little wonky one right here, and then from that one, this one. So it is starting to get back to a nice big leaf pattern, and the reason I cut it is because it was literally touching the ceiling. It was that big. My cutting was just a huge cutting and I rooted it and I was able to sell it, and it was gorgeous. I have always left on the aerial roots of this plant because I think it's so cool and I love them, but look at that mess. It is just crazy in there. This is absolutely a favorite. I recommend Monstera to everyone. I think they are pretty pest resistant and also just very quick growers and very, very rewarding. As far as care goes, you can tell it's getting some great intense bright light from this south window right here. It has always lived in this south window, and I really think that that is one of the reasons it has grown so well. It gets a ton of bright light all the time. I do clean the leaves with leaf wellness whenever I think of it, just because they do get really dusty because of their size. I use Foliage Pro every time I water. This never stops growing. It grows through the winter, summer, everything. So I always mix in the fertilizer with my water every time I water. And I water when it's completely dry, and that's a little bit harder to tell on such a large plant. But I use a bamboo skewer and just kind of stick it down in there, and then when it comes out completely dry, I soak it completely. So that is how I care for this thing. It's very easy, very laid back, has had no pest issues for me, and I just love it. Okay, now we're gonna head back into the sunroom so I can show you a couple more. It's definitely not as bright in here. Not having a south window in here does kind of limit some things that I can grow. This window back here is west facing. The one in front of me over here is east facing, so that is somewhat helpful, of course. In general, I can't have as much as I would like to have in this room, so let me go grab my next favorite. Okay, this is my Xerosisios danguii, the silver dollar vine, and it has been going crazy lately. I have had this one for about 4 years as well, and it has all of this new growth, and I try to just keep letting it wrap around this trellis. And this one is very easy as well, which I think is why it made my top 5. I have it in this deeper pot because a while ago I heard that they prefer, like they have a deep taproot, so they prefer deeper pots, like skiddier deeper pots versus wide and shallow. So I've had it in here and it's doing really well. I fertilize it with Foliage Pro every time I water as well. And this one is just on a wooden, what is this called? An embroidery hoop trellis that I made. It looks like this and it's a little crazy, but I love it and I think it is such a cool plant and it has been just going nuts. I also don't see these that often, so I feel like it's one of my more rare plants, especially for the size that it is. I feel like this size is pretty unique to have in a private collection. I really love this plant. It's my pride and joy, and I think that these are very easy as well as long as you have good light. It has done well in a west window and an east window, and it would love a south window as well. I just don't have room for it over there, so it lives in an east window right now, and it's doing well. Again, this one's pretty pest resistant too. I haven't ever had to treat it for anything, and that makes me happy. And then number 3 is one that's hard to actually show you. It's this, in this little pot back here, and it is the golden pothos that's going all around this room. And the reason it made my top 5 is because it was a cutting from my mom's plant, and she sent it with me when I went to college like 15 years ago, and it has just done so well dealing with me as a new plant parent, and it like lived through a lot of neglect, and I just am very happy with how it's turned out so far. So it's one that I want to hold on to and make survive forever. I would be crushed if something happened to it. My care for this one is pretty straightforward as well. I also use Foliage Pro every time I water because it does not stop growing either. And I try to water it thoroughly until water comes out the drain holes, and sometimes I have to hold an extra bowl underneath it just to make sure it doesn't make a mess on the floor, but it has done pretty well. It's also very low maintenance. All right, number 4 is my Pilea peperomioides, which has definitely seen better days, although it is still hanging in there, and there's lots of babies to help grow and fill in the bottom of the base that's a little bit more bare. But I've had this one for about 8 years. It started as one about this size, so it has been with me for a long time. I've left some of the babies in there and they've become adults of their own, and so it's helped fill in the pot a lot. I also fertilize this one every time I water, and I water when it's completely dry, just because I feel like if I water more frequently than that, it starts to freak out. So it has been pretty happy overall. I do feel like when I first potted it up into this pot, it was way too big of a pot and it struggled, and that's when it dropped a lot of the lower leaves. And since then, it has started to fill in with babies, so I'm fine with it. But this is another pride and joy plant because it's just so big, and I just rarely see them this size, and so it just makes me happy that I have this one in my collection. All right, now we're up in my office, and before I show you my 5th and final favorite, make sure you guys subscribe if you've enjoyed this video so far. I really love making these, and it would help me out so much. Make sure you also like, comment your favorite one you've seen. It will help me with the algorithm. Thanks. Okay, and then we have my 5th and final favorite of my top 5. This is my Ficus tineke, and I've also had this one for about 4 years. And it is also a great grower. It goes outside in the summer though, and I think that that helps a ton with its growth in general. So I put it outside on my south-facing covered porch, and it is in full shade, but it's bright shade, and it loves it. It grows nonstop all summer, so it's gotten nice and big, and I just think it is such a fun plant. I think the leaves are beautiful. They're all different and they look like a watercolor painting, and I think it's so fun to have this one. This is another one that I also give Foliage Pro every single time I water, and it does keep growing all winter. This is a new leaf that just opened. It lives under this Russo grow light, so it's getting plenty of light, and so it doesn't really stop growing, so I continue to fertilize it. The leaf patterns are just stunning though. I love these. And of ficus, I think it's probably my favorite ficus. I do love all different types, but this one has just been a consistent love of mine just because the leaves are so stunning. All right, and that is my top 5. I mean, I'm sure in like a year or something it might change, but over the time I've owned plants, those have always been like in my top 10 at least. And right now, I think I'm just really appreciating the process of growing plants, especially getting them smaller and growing them larger. I feel like that just helps me feel more accomplished. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really fun to buy big full plants like for that immediate wow factor, but I do love seeing the process of growing them from something small, because you know that you did it and you know that you provided the care they needed and that they're happy and it's going well. So I think that for me has been even more rewarding than just collecting rare plants or collecting a lot of plants. It's just been seeing the plants that I've had the longest do well, and that just makes me feel happy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, make sure you subscribe, like it, comment your favorite down below. I'd love to hear of these top 5, if any of them are your favorites or if they would be in your top 5 too. If you guys would like to support me, you can go and sign up to be a patron over on Patreon. I offer behind the scenes stories exclusive to my Patreon members, monthly plant chats, monthly giveaways, and all the good stuff. So make sure that you go and check that out, and I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you later.